So raise your hand if you've been to Hawaii. Wow, more than I thought. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, and we almost went there, but then COVID broke out, so I never got to go there. So hopefully someday I'll get to go there. Well, usually when you think of going to Hawaii, you're thinking like, honeymoon, great vacation, beautiful beaches, I don't know, aloha, all those wonderful things. Today's saint went to Hawaii to do none of that. His name is Saint Damien, and they call him of Molokai because that was an island in which held all of these people who had, I think it was called Hansen's disease or leprosy. And the thing that was amazing about him is that he was a priest. He was in the Netherlands. He didn't even know like anybody in, I would imagine, like in Hawaii or anything like that. And his brother was assigned originally to go to the colony. But his brother got sick, and so he was a priest, and he's like, all right, I'll go instead. And then he would spend basically the rest of his life there tending to the lepers in Hawaii. And just as a biographical note, this is in 1873, and he was there for a while. He was in a group called the, I forget the name of the group, it's not important, but he would finally die of leprosy in 1889. And a great movie on this as well, which shows like one of these moments where like when you get leprosy, you lose feeling in the skin, to the point where like what happened to him, like he knew that he got leprosy when they were cleaning like something, and he put his feet into water that was scalding hot and he didn't feel it. And then they knew that this was the beginning of the end. And there's a picture of him on his deathbed. He just looks awful. His skin is just green and black and disgusting. And you can just tell every part of his body is slowly rotting away. And you might wonder, like, why would this happen to a guy who chose to go there? Like, wouldn't God, like, grace him with this bubble wrap or, like, immune system to that? And yes, I think for several years, he was able to tend to these lepers and never get leprosy. But the point is this, is that just because Jesus Christ rose from the dead, he conquers death, does not mean he erases us from the gift of pain. Because the gift of pain can be transformed into the gift of suffering. In other words, when we see the daily life of our pains and knocks of loved ones, of the leprosy that can get into us where we get immune to what's going on around us because we start going into these cycles of internal ways of dealing with stress and stuff, that's when we need to hear the shepherd's voice. That's when we need to hear Jesus call us by name and trust in him. Trust in his claim that he is the one that we need to hear, to know, and ultimately to follow. And I love this. He says, no one can take them out of my hand. In the most dire situations, they said, St. Damien said, one of the hardest parts of being in the colony is that he was the only priest there. So therefore, after 10 years, no other priest would come there that much, and so he didn't have anybody to go to confession to. And so similar to like if you get COVID and then you're not allowed to be around people, he was isolated on this island. So once he sent for a priest, but the priest had to be out in the boat. So he had to do his confession publicly in order for the priest to hear him and be able to get like that. And he said that was one of his worst sufferings because he couldn't go to confession because he was the only priest. It's kind of the worst thing about being a priest. Like if we're on an airplane and we're about to crash, I can give general absolution to everybody except yours truly. So it makes us kind of have to, make sure we get on an airplane that we got extra security for traveling. Do you know what I mean? But the point in all of this is, I think of my little nephew James, and there he is, 12 years old, going under the most excruciating pain because his head is resting on his spine in a way that shouldn't happen, and so he has these awful pains. And today they're trying to alleviate that through just a real rigorous surgery. And you wonder, like a little man like that, 12 years old, what did he do? Why does he have to endure this? And yesterday as I was reflecting on this, it's like we all have pain. And the question is, will we let Jesus into that sphere of pain to transform it into suffering? And I feel like that's the invitation that I would invite all of you to pray for in James's case and in all that you're going through. That Jesus Christ makes the difference not by taking away the pain, but giving it the value that it deserves, which is that earthly pain can be transformed into suffering when we let Jesus share in it with us. Because what he did on Calvary continues through the sacrifice of all of us. And usually what happens, at least in my life, is I get hurting and I just isolate. And I just think of my own self and my own stuff, and then it just gets closed off, and then more and more it's just into myself. And it's like Jesus is like, wait, don't you hear my voice? Don't you realize that nobody can take you away from me? So give me those burdens, share those things with me, and allow myself to be lavished in the Good Shepherd who wants to carry us in our pain so as to transform it into suffering. It's kind of like what happened to the Penguins, right? Like sometimes you need injuries in order for good things to happen. They lost their top 2 goalies, and now the best goalie in the world can't beat us, but one of the worst goalies ever to be put on an ice skating rink, who is a third stringer who normally wouldn't even be playing at this time of the year, shines. It's perfect Christian mystery of how this all works, you know? At least I always feel like a third string goalie that shouldn't be playing in the major leagues. I don't know about you, but it's like, I don't know why, you know? It's like, Lord, he loves taking third string goalies and making them into superstars. And maybe that's really where the rub is. There where we feel that pain, we just take that humiliation, those things, we give it to Jesus. And because we're with him, there's value, purpose, and even victories like last night.